On my previous video, I tried something new and I didn't put my face on the screen. I'm going to do it again with this one. If it's good or bad, you tell me what you think, please. So we left off talking about types of exocrine glands, merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine. So that ends up our discussion on glandular epithelium. So now I'm going to go into the different types of epithelial tissue around the body. So if you remember, we can classify these things based on cell types and layers of cells. All right. So we're just going to go piece or layer by layer, and let's see how we do. So first one is simple squamous or simple squamous epithelium. So remember, simple one layer, squamous flattened cell, the single layer flattened cells, and you can see on the picture it looks like they fit together like floor tiles. These things are pretty interesting because stuff can go straight through them. Okay, so we're going to find these things in a few different places, but really places or sites of diffusion. All right, so first and foremost, we're going to find them in the lungs. Okay, they're going to line the air sacs of the lungs, specifically around these little things called alveoli, which we may learn about later in the year. But that's where oxygen comes in and carbon dioxide goes out. They line the walls of blood vessels, capillaries, and lymphatic vessels. Now that has a specific name there. It's called endothelium. So if you hear endothelium, that is simple squamous epithelium on the walls of capillaries and blood vessels. They also line or cover the membranes of our body. So that's where we have mesothelium. Mesothelium. Okay. So remember that all of the membranes that we discussed in Unit 1, like the parietal pleural and visceral pleural and parietal peritoneum, they're all covered by mesothelium, which is an area, which is a layer of simple squamous epithelium. Now think about these, they can be easily damaged, but on the flip side of that, they can repair themselves pretty easily as well. Our next type is going to be simple cuboidal, which is a single layer of cube-shaped cells. Now, I should have said already, these pictures that you're seeing on the right, there's obviously an illustration, but then you notice there's an actual photograph. All of these are actual photographs through microscopes of structures in the body. So we'll find these in a lot of places, some certain glands. They cover the ovaries, and then like parts of and tubes of the kidneys and a lot of glands throughout the body. They do a couple of things. Number one is absorption. Okay, this is sites of absorption in the kidneys, as well as secretion of certain products. Well, there you go. I just said that. We're not going to get into specific glands and the products that they secrete, but these things are going to be in those areas where those glands are creating secretions. I have simple columnar epithelium. Simple columnar, elongated cells, one layer, but you notice that the nucleus of these cells is close to the basement membrane. Okay, that is a very important distinction of these things. The nucleus is near the basement membrane. You can see it in the photograph down here. Okay, excuse me. They may contain goblet cells. Goblet cells are these cool cells that secrete mucus. Now, mucus is something we'll discuss a lot more later in the year, but mucus is really important. It's kind of this gross thing that people talk about, but it lubricates and moistens and protects our tissues on the inside of our body, and like in our mouth, in these places called mucous membranes. All right. Two types of simple columnar epithelium. There is ciliated, and then there is non-ciliated. Ciliated are type that have cilia. Now, cilia are these little hair-like projections on the surface that peek into the lumen. That depending on the part of the body, they're going to have different functions. Okay, the function I have there, you see, part of the female reproductive system. Basically, these little hair-like projections help push the egg towards the uterus during the development. Okay, non-ciliated do not have cilia on, so they're going to be smoother. So these would be lining portions of the digestive tract and in the uterus. And again, well, let's get to our functions. They provide some protection, and they are used for secretion of and absorption of certain products from our food that's in the digestive tract. Okay, so that's simple columnar epithelium. Here, this is an interesting one, pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium. Pseudo, that's kind of like fake, right? So pseudo-stratified, it looks like there's a bunch of layers there, but it's actually just one layer. If you're looking at these, I have the nuclei are on different levels, but an important distinction with this is every cell is going to be attached to the basement membrane, but not every cell will reach the apical surface up here. So you see this one's a little shorter, here's a little shorter, here's a little shorter. Okay, so they're not all reaching the apical surface. So it looks like there's two or more layers, but they're not all reaching there. A lot of times they're going to be ciliated, meaning they have cilia, and they will have goblet cells secreting mucus. Big place where we'll see these things is in the respiratory tract when you breathe. The cilia trap the dust, the mucus helps us the mucus traps the dust if you breathe it in. The cilia help us sweep it out and get rid of microorganisms. Sorry, I went real fast there so you can read that last sentence. Next, I have stratified squamous. Now, don't be confused by this one, okay? First of all, it's stratified, many, many layers of cells. But if you look at the picture, you notice that they're not all squamous, I'm sorry. They're only flattened at the surface. So we name them for the shape of the cells at the surface, at the top, okay? Notice they're cuboidal or possibly even columnar down near the basement membrane. Very important part about this, and we'll learn more about this with the integumentary system. We get a lot of cell division happening down here, okay, in the close to the basement membrane. And then when cell division occurs, it basically pushes all the cells up and up and up and up. So it's kind of like they're hitting the roof right here. And as we push things into them, they kind of flatten out and get skinnier and skinnier because they're being pushed from the bottom. Okay. In addition to that, as they reach the surface, these cells die. So this is the outer layer of your skin, your epidermis. We have a bunch of dead cells that, like, if you look at your hand, it's full of dead cells. All right, it's dead because the things from underneath of it, because mitosis is happening down here, but pushing everything else away from like that blood supply and the nutrients. So by the time they reach the surface, they're as far away from that supply of nutrients as they could be. And we lose those cells a lot. We lose thousands and thousands and thousands of skin cells every day. In addition to dying, these skin cells are going to fill with a protein called keratin. And that process is known as keratinization. All right. Basically, they die, they fill with this protein. This protein basically helps it to get a little bit more waterproofing, prevent substances from entering the body, and really provides an extra layer of protection, even though these cells are dead near the surface. Now, we also find them not just on the outer layer of our skin, but like on our oral cavity. So if we did a lab in biology where you scrape the inside of your cheek with a toothpick, we actually looked at stratified squamous epithelium. The vagina, anal canal, esophagus. Now, those areas of the body, the cells are not keratinized. So only the cells of the skin, the outer layers of the skin or the epidermis, are going to have that keratin filling those outer layers of cells. Moving on, stratified cuboidal. Not a whole lot to say about this. A couple layers of cube-shaped cells. We'll find these in certain glands around the body: mammary glands, sweat glands, salivary glands, pancreas. Again, we're going to see this a lot. Absorption and secretion based on, depending on the products that they're secreting, that's the job that they're going to have. And obviously protection. Stratified columnar cells. Many layers of cells. Most of the time, they're going to be cuboidal at the bottom and then stratified near the apical surface. You can see where they're located. These are located in the eye, the male urethra, which is where males get rid of urine, parts of the pharynx leading to our larynx and then to our trachea, and large ducts of certain excretory glands are part of the excretory system. And again, secretion and protection. And then we have my favorite, the transitional epithelium. If you think of the word transition, that means to change. My dad wears transition glasses. meaning that like they're normal when he's inside, and then when he goes outside, they turn to sunglasses. Transitional epithelium is not designed, it evolved in order to change based on the conditions of the body. So we'll find these in our urinary bladder. That's the part that holds the urine before you have to go to the bathroom. So when the bladder fills up, think of a water balloon filling up. The walls get thinner and thinner and thinner of that water balloon. Well, the same thing happens to our bladder. But then when that water balloon empties, the walls or that latex on that balloon gets thicker. That's the same thing that happens with our bladder. Okay, the cells are able to slide past one another and flatten out when they're fully stretched, when that bladder's full of urine. Okay, but when it's empty, basically everything kind of goes back to its normal uh, shape and size, and those walls may seem a little bit thicker. So you can see two examples there, and again, you can see the pictures. This picture is when the bladder would be empty. This picture is when the bladder would be full of urine and it's really thin and stretched out. And there you go. So that is the last of our epithelial tissues.